1951. Iran, home to one of the world's largest oil reserves. A prime minister elected by the people stands up and says the oil beneath this land belongs to the people of this land. He stops the flow of oil revenues to British and American corporations. His people love him. The streets celebrate. The newspapers run headlines. Now think about this. 2 years later, do you know what happens to this man? He is in prison, charged with treason. Not put there by his own people, by the CIA, by British intelligence MI6. The operation had name Ajax. Today I am going to walk you through the foundational history you need to understand Iran. We start in 1953, but this story connects directly to what's happening today. Lean back, because what you are about to hear goes far beyond what you have been shown. Chapter 1. Let's go back to the 1920s. Who owned Iran's oil? Let's go back before World War II. The year is 1908. The Iran's southern Kazakhstan region, British engineers strike a massive oil deposit. Britain moves quickly. The Anglo-Persian Oil Company is formed, later renamed Anglo-Iran Oil Company, the direct ancestor of what you know today as BP. The terms of deal were deeply unequal. Iran received only a small fraction of the revenues generated from its own oil. The lion's share flowed back to Britain. Iranian workers extracted oil from their own land, but saw very little of benefits. Wages were low, working rights were minimal. This arrangement continued to decades. During World War II, Iran was occupied simultaneously by both Britain and Soviet Union. This is a separate story, but the important note is this: Iran was never simply a peripheral player. The great powers always had their eyes on it. The war ended, and inside Iran, a slow, fragile democratic movement began to breathe. And Chapter 2. Mosaddegh. Who was he? In 1951, the Iranian parliament elected Mohammad Mosaddegh as a prime minister. Mosaddegh was a different kind of figure. He had studied law in Switzerland and France. He was educated, intellectual, but above all, he was a nationalist. A deep Iranian nationalist. In his view, Iran's central problem was clear. The country's most valuable resources was flowing to foreign companies, not to the Iran people. Mosaddegh brought a proposal to parliament. Let's nationalize Iran's oil industry. Let the states take ownership. Let this country's oil belong to this country's government. The proposal was met with enormous public support. In May 1951, Nationalization Act passed Parliament. The Anglo-Iran oil companies assessed were seized. British personnel were ordered out of the country. Where was Shah Reza Pahlavi at this moment? He was in Tehran, but he was frightened. Unsettled by Mossadegh's growing power, by the public's adoration of him, so unsettled that he soon left, first to Iraq, then to Italy. He settled in Rome. Chapter 3. London and Washington intervene. Mosaddegh moves sent London into rage. Washington wasn't far behind. Britain was losing an oil dominance it had built over decades. It couldn't accept this, but acting alone carried risk. International opinion was shifting. The Cold War created its own delicate balance. So London went to Washington and said, "Help us." America had one primary anxiety at this moment. Could the Soviets exploit the instability in Iran? If Iran became destabilized, Russia might step in to fill the vacuum. That anxiety was enough to set the CIA in motion. The CIA and MI6 jointly planned a covert operation. They gave it the name Operation Ajax. International CIA documents contained notes about this operation for decades. They were classified in 2013. The classification was lifted, and the USA State Department formally acknowledged Americans' roles in the coup. This is not a theory. This is documented historical fact, confirmed by the CIA's own internal documents. Chapter 4: Operation Ajax. 2 years of dirty work. The man who ran the operation on the ground was named Kermit Roosevelt, the grandson of the former USA President Theodore Roosevelt. He was working for the CIA in Iran. Kermit Roosevelt traveled to Tehran in 1953 and personally coordinated the operation. What did they actually do? That's the question. First, money. Large sums of money were spent. Journalists, newspaper columnists, union leaders, generals, bureaucrats, some of these were directly bought. They were paid to build public opposition to Mosaddegh. Second, provocation. Street-level chaos was engineered through the deliberate tactics. Attacks were staged and attributed to Mossadegh supporters. People were turned against one another. And third, the military. Generals who had already been cultivated were activated. By August 1953, this provocation reached a breaking point. Large crowds poured into the streets. But a significant portion of those crowds were not spontaneous. They were organized, financed, and directed. The military surrounded Mossadegh's home, and the Prime Minister surrendered to the coup force. A Prime Minister elected by the people, supported by the people, had been removed from power in days through money and manipulation. Chapter 5: Mossadegh's End. Traitor. Immediately after the coup, Mossadegh was arrested. He was tried before a military tribunal, and he was convicted of treason. He was sentenced to prison. After serving his sentence, he was held under house arrest until his death in 1967. Kept far from public life, far from politics, far from everything. The man who had fought to bring Iran's oil revenues back to Iran had been declared a traitor. And the people who did this to him described themselves as Iran's friends. This paradox is perhaps the most fundamental fracture points in the relationship between Iran and the West, and it's one of the deep roots of profound distrust of Western governments and foreign intervention in general that runs through Iranian political culture to this day. Without understanding this, you cannot fully understand anything you read, watch, or hear about Iran. Chapter 6: The Shah returns from Rome as a hero. With Mossadegh removed, The Shah, living in exile in Rome, received the news. He returned to Tehran with the bearing of a national savior. The first thing he did after reclaiming the throne was not surprising. He signed a new petroleum consortium agreement with Britain. Under this agreement, a significant share of Iran's oil production and revenues was handed back to foreign corporations. American and British oil companies returned to Iran. The circle was complete. Mosaddegh had brought Iran's oil back to Iran. The Shah gave it away again. And the Shah didn't stop there. He tightened his grip on parliament. He surprised opposition. He established himself as Iran's uncontested sole authority. Iran would not see a free election again, not until 1979. And what happened in 1979? We'll get there, but first ask yourself, who protected this Shah? How? Easy question is. And answer is SAWAK. In the next episode, I will explain SAWAK, the CIA's secret police apparatus inside Iran. And Chapter 7, what do we take from this today? A question for those watching the conflict in Iran today. When evaluating the legitimacy of Western position towards Iran, does 1953 belong in that calculation? That's the question. And that's not a simple question. And I'm telling you what to conclude. But I will say this. A history in which a covert operation removed an elected, popularly supported leader, and then reshaped his country under the banner of bringing stability, is at the very least an uncomfortable foundation for today's posture. This history is confirmed by CIA's own documents, by the USA State Department's own archives. Not a conspiracy theory, documented history. And that history is indispensable to understanding the ground beneath everything happening today. In the next episode, the Shah's worth billion-dollar extravagance and the secret police the CIA and MI6 built to protect it. SAWAK. Stay with us. See you then. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Leave your thoughts in the comments and share this if it added something to your understanding. Thank you for listening me.